Welcome to Core Women Live. Thank you for joining me. This is my opportunity to feature some very special guests where they talk about their goals, aspirations, challenges, resiliency, wisdom. Join me as I get the opportunity to talk to people about their journeys. Thank you. Hello and welcome everybody out there, either on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Welcome. This is the Core Women Live, and I want to thank you for being out there and thank all of my guests here on this panel. And today's title for this talk is The Success Secrets for Every Emerging Entrepreneur. And on this panel today, I have Dr. Margaret Barrow. Hey, Dr. Margaret Barrow.
Hi, you. Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Chiara Covone. Thank you for being here. I have Jen Fontanilla, who is also my amazing partner. Hello, hello. And she helps make these talks happen. Thank you so much, Jen.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And then we also have Neha Sampat. Welcome.
Hello. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. And I am Dr. Summer Watson. So welcome. We are going to be talking again about the success secrets for every emerging entrepreneur. And each person is going to have 10 minutes to speak, and they're going to be speaking on a different subject matter. So we'll get right into this. But before we do, I want to make sure that everybody's ready and excited. Are we excited? We're excited to be here with you. So again, thank you out there for those of you who are watching. All right, so I'm going to introduce the fabulous Dr. Margaret Barrow, and she's going to be speaking today on product development, the process of manufacturing and steps involved for those wanting to start a consumer packaged goods business. Now, Dr. Margaret Barrow is the founder and CEO of It's Nola, which is a Black women-owned vegan snack company in Brooklyn, New York. Margaret is also a tenured associate professor at Barrow of Manhattan Community College, a published author, keynote speaker, and a graduate of Columbia University. You can find Margaret at www.itsnola.com or itsnola.com on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and It's Nola Snacks. All right. Welcome, Dr. Margaret Barrow. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to start out by saying that as you heard from Dr. Watson there, I did not start off as someone who wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I kind of got into the snack space because I consider myself a snack monster. And and you know, by that I mean I like to snack, you know. So the research tells us that 94 to 96% of Americans snack 4 to 6 times a day. That's a lot of snacking. So it's not a surprise, right, that I'm a snack monster, and I'm sure some of you are also snack monsters. Starting this company was something that occurred because my students fell in love with the snacks that I was bringing to them. And I never thought I would actually take it to where it is today, but I did. And by doing that, what I really had to do was to think very differently about snacking itself, right? So it's no longer just eating snacks. Now I got to figure out how to make this snack available to other people. And not just that, but to present it to people. And so it all began with my students creating proof of concept. It wasn't something that I set out to do. My students actually shared my product with other college students across New York City. They didn't tell me. They just went out and did it. And they created a survey, gave the snacks out, brought these surveys to me. So I didn't even realize, and I'm going to be completely honest, when I first started, I was like, proof of concept, I don't even know what that is. Like, I have no idea what that is. And then when someone said, no, your students actually demonstrated that people like it. So once that had happened, I thought, you know what, let me go ahead and do this. My mission is to really help students. And also I think it's important. And for me, the importance of providing healthy snacks in a world of snacking people is important, right? Because we definitely need healthier snacks. So I went into this thinking, all right, so I have all these great ingredients, but I'm purchasing them where? At the grocery store. Now, you cannot run a business purchasing your ingredients at a grocery store. So first thing was really learning, okay, where can I get these products? And then speaking with these ingredient companies and figuring out that as a small company, my costs are going to be pretty high. So that means that I have to look at pricing. I have to really figure out, what am I buying it for? How much can I sell it for? And then kind of look at what's already out there. So for me, it was originally looking at granola. How much are people paying for granola? Like looking at the pricing, and then also looking at the quality of granola, because that's important too. Your product might have a certain quality. So you're coming into a space where the pricing almost is already set. But at the same time, you're walking into a space thinking, listen, I have the best product on the market, so I'm just going to sell it at whatever price I want to. That doesn't work. So you really it's really important to do the market research so that you have a great understanding of what's going on in the market. And then once you do that, then you have a better sense of, okay, I have my ingredients. I understand that I'm going to pay more. So what do I do? A lot of that has to do with you have to figure out how to manufacture this product. So you have to figure out where you're going to go to manufacture it. First thing is that you have to get your food handler's permit, because nobody's going to buy food from you if you don't know how to handle it. So it's not like cooking in your kitchen. You know what I mean? So the good food manufacturing process means that you have to be trained. And that means that you have to make sure that you are working with the city or state, and there are programs. So there are programs online. So with most cities, they have two processes. And one is you learn, there's a book, you go through this whole series of chapters where you learn good manufacturing practices, what that means online. And then you have to go in person and take an exam. Once you pass that exam, you get this permit. And that permit then allows you to then go and look for places where you're going to make your product. So now you have to look for a commercial kitchen. And this is really critical. You need to understand when you go into a commercial kitchen, there are certain things you have to look for. Sometimes you get so excited that you can make your product. You're like, I don't care where I make it. They said I could make it here. They accepted me. I've been looking all around, and this is the only place I found that said yes. No, you do have to be very careful, because one of the most important things you have to do is take a walk through the commercial kitchen and really look at it. Don't look at it in a romantic way, because I think oftentimes we do. We're so enamored with the idea that we actually get to make a product, and we're going to go into business that we forget to really look at the cleanliness of the space, and that's important. It's also you have to ask important questions. How much deep cleaning is going on in this space, so that you can understand how the space is cared for, how many people are working in the space, to keep it clean. You also have to look at the equipment. Look really carefully at the equipment, because you can go into a place and see equipment that is dirty. And once you see that, you really need to think about, should I be here, or should I be the person who comes here and tells them how to clean it? You know what I mean? Do you want to be that person? I don't know. It's possible. I mean, and it's also creating relationships with the people who are taking care of the space. Once you're there, it's so important to meet other food producers. Don't just go into your little space and make your product and never say hello to anyone. You have to build a community. In order to be successful in any business, you cannot do this alone. You have to build your community. And when you're producing food and you're new to everything, one of the things that you will learn very quickly, the more food producers you know, the smarter you become. Because food producers love to share. Not only do they love to share their knowledge and information, they love to share their food, which is a plus. So you're always tasting some really amazing food. And then you start to learn in terms of looking at becoming a vendor. So don't think of I'm jumping into this, I'm making my product, and now I'm going to have $1 million company. No, that's generally not what happens. That's rare. So you have to really move very cautiously in this space. So you want to make sure that you are building your customer base. And to do that, farmers markets are really great places to start. And there at the farmers market, you begin to build that customer space. Not just that, you're also getting feedback. So let's say that you have 6 different products that you've come out with, or flavors that you've come out with. And then you discover at the farmer's market that only 2 are really good, right? People only want those 2. Then you don't have to worry about going into production with all of those flavors. That's a waste of money. And we've seen many food producers come out with a lot of product all at once. So we came out with just 2 flavors. And that's what's really good. A friend of mine, she came out with 12. And then she told me, but only 6 sell. So she said, I learned the hard way. And so I think having this talk that we're having today is meant to help you not make the same mistakes that we made, so that you can be successful, maybe a little faster than we've been. So once you do that, then you have an opportunity to you have to make sure that you are working with the agriculture and markets department, because you have to get your license from them. And then you have to work with the health department. And let me tell you something, you will get frustrated, but it's okay. Be nice to people. You will get your license. Be nice to people. Be kind and nice, and share your product. And that's what you want, is you want to make sure that people remember you. So as you go through all these different bureaucracies, because it will help you to become more successful. So build your community. Make sure that you are walking cautiously, and speak to people who've already done this like we've done this.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Dr. Margaret Barrow. What great information we can actually glean from this and take away and apply it. So thank you so much. I love it. Thank you. So next up is Chiara Covone, and she's going to be speaking on master your time and get things done as an entrepreneur, how to get organized and maintain momentum as an entrepreneur. All right. So her bio is, she is an executive coach, has a 20-year history of working in the corporate arena in the areas of marketing, innovation, and business development, and has made it her mission to help individuals live life on their terms and help them in their journey of recognizing how powerful they are. She is originally from Italy and lives with her husband, twins, and her dogs outside of Stockholm. Chiara can be reached at chiaracovone.com. Again, welcome, Chiara.
Thank you so much, Summer, for having me. That's such an amazing opportunity and really inspiring, Margaret. Thank you for your insights. So I'm going to talk about time management. And time management has been one of the things that I landed on as a first, actually, coaching practice when I started my career as a coach. So the thing is that when I left corporate, as I said, I worked for more than 20 years in the corporate, and I started going to these gatherings of business women and entrepreneurs women. One of the things that struck me was really these phases of fear and anxiety of women in face of Monday morning. And I thought it was so interesting because I didn't have that problem. And I had to kind of go back to my history of why don't I have the same problem? Why are women that are leaving the world of corporate and coming into the world of entrepreneurs suffering so much with their imposter syndrome when it comes to Monday morning, when, the husband and the kids leave home and the house is empty, and you're there in front of your imposter syndrome and in front of your, or your anxiety of how do I deal with my time? What do I do? Where do I start? And so I actually had the luxury and the luck that before becoming an entrepreneur, I actually was working remotely. And this was way before COVID. Way before the world we're living in, where everybody works from home. So I actually was leading 600 people, and I was working from this office in Stockholm, And I had these people spread all around the world, basically. And I had to find ways for all of us working remotely to kind of still feel efficient and focused and motivated. So that's really where I started digging into, the Googles and the YouTube of this world and finding ways. How do people do that? And the interesting thing is that I landed on a lot of advices for entrepreneurs, because at that time there was no COVID, nobody was working from home. I mean, there was really just a very small niche, so there wasn't any market for that at that time for non-entrepreneurs, but there was definitely already a market for entrepreneurs. And so I started buying different planners and buying different solutions and really understanding, how do I get my team to apply some of the principles that entrepreneurs are using to us as a team. And because I had this practice of trial and error, a bit to your point, Margaret, right? There's never a magic bullet. You gotta go through pain and hit the wall and do the mistakes and learn from it, because then you find things that work for you. So I had this period of actually finding things that were working both for me and then for all these people that were working for me. And so one of the key things that really I landed on is something that I'd like to share with you today, because that's really something that I started using with, every time I coach entrepreneurs, but even when I coach executives. Because the point is that even as an executive or a professional in a corporate, the way we manage time is very sloppy. Things happen to us, right? So if you're in a corporate world, you have all your calendar basically blocked and locked by other people's meetings and agenda, and you kind of go by the flow. And as an entrepreneur, so that's where you're really lucky, right? You don't have that pressure because nobody is looking for you. So that's why you have this fear of relevance, fear of not mattering, because nobody's fixing thing in your calendar when you're starting, right? You don't have Calendly people filling up your time. So the point is that how do you manage, instead of being a victim of what happens to you, actually put much more intentionality into your time? And the first thing, which is sounds banal, but is really important, is that you want to understand where you're going. So you first want to really understand, what do I want to achieve and what time frame, right? So really setting smart goals. And the point of smart goals is that you don't want to approach them with a scarcity mindset of, oh my God, I'm late and I got to make money. Because that mindset, and I'm sure, Jan, you will talk about a lot about that later, right? That mindset will not bring you anywhere. That scarcity, it's going to even beat you more up on the Monday morning, because you feel like, I'm never going to make it. This is impossible. Imposter syndrome. This inner critic is going to eat you up. So the point is that really sitting with yourself and start thinking, what do I want for me? What I want to achieve, and why do I want it, right? How do we find that inspiration coming from within? I want it, right? Like you, Margaret, you're developing these products because you are a snack junkie and you want to eat good food and you want to share it with everybody else, right? You don't want to eat junk. You want to eat healthy, delicious, healthy food. How is that possible? So that why is so important. What do you want and why do you want it? And the other thing is also that as entrepreneur, we completely overestimate what we can achieve in a year, and we completely underestimate what we can achieve in 10 years. I think this is actually a quote from Tony Robbins, but I really love it because it's really so true. We want to make everything in 1 year and we don't look so much forward. So instead of really setting your goal that are achievable, and that's why the SMART concept, right? SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, time-bound, and attainable and measurable. So really it's thinking about, can I achieve that? Am I setting myself up for failure, or am I setting myself up for something that actually is going to excite me and inspire me? So start small, particularly in the first year. Set yourself up for this goal. And then you want to sit with yourself, and that's good to do on a Monday morning, and you start writing down all the things you want to do to achieve that goal. And that brain dump to maximize the math on your side. And that's also something that as entrepreneurs we need to learn, right? We need to learn to get the no's. So we want to be getting the math, right? If only 10% of everything we do is going to work, well, I gotta do 10 things to make one work. So can I list all those things and list them on a sheet that then I can start working on? And then the key thing is, every time, so you have this brain dump with all the activities you want to do to achieve that goal in that time frame. And then you want to think about, okay, so the first thing I want to do is that I wanted to reach out to, let's say, food producer, right? I want to contact kitchen. how much time is this going to take? How much time I'm going to allocate to do this activity? Because the problem is that if we don't set boundaries to our time, we could do it for the next 3 years. So, and I know that sometimes my clients say, but I don't know how long it's going to take me. And that's the wrong answer. Because if you close all distractions and you aim, you know yourself, you trust yourself and say, okay, I can only give myself an hour. What can I realistically achieve in that hour? And go with that. Aim for B minus work, right? You don't need to aim for perfection because that perfection is going to slow us down as entrepreneurs. So aim for really B minus. Decide that activity is going to take you 45 minutes. And then the next thing is that you put that activity in your calendar. Because that's the other thing we don't do as entrepreneurs. We don't populate our calendars with our activities. We all have it in this flying papers or maybe at best in an Excel sheet on a computer. And then we need to retrieve it and look for it and go like top priority, right? This is the first thing on the list, so I'm going to start there. That's not very efficient. So you want to look at the activities, see what time it's going to take you, already have an understanding of priorities and place it in your calendar. Because the beauty there is then you can strike it off your to-do list. Because it's taken care of, because that's the power of our brain. This prefrontal cortex, that is the most sophisticated part of the brain, is great at executing, but also great at planning. So we got to access that by putting things in the calendar. And then when the time comes, we know we're going to stick to that activity. And if you don't stick, that's why you need to go back to your why. Why do I want to do this? What was the reason I think that activity was bringing me to my goal? That's why. 45 minutes, close off Facebook, all the activities, all other interruptions, email, etc., and just do that. And as you start doing that every Monday, this brain dump, populating your calendar, and then during the week, following up, I really notice so many amazing progress from all my clients, myself, and also my friends. So really encourage you to just follow those instructions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chiara. Fantastic. So much, again, to grasp here, take away for efficiency and time management. Thank you so much, Chiara, again. So next speaker, Jen Fontanilla. She's going to be speaking on money mindset reset, understanding and clearing out the blocks to allow more abundance and revenue in. Her bio. Jen is a speaker, author of multiple books, graphic designer, international lifestyle writer, and certified money coach who has worked with organizations such as the Walt Disney Company, Sony Studios, Warner Brothers, Target, Goodwill, and the U.S. Air Force, and is the co-host of the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. You can find Jen Fontanilla on Facebook and Instagram and at jenmoneycoach.com. Take it away, Jen.
Thank you, Summer. Thank you, ladies. Such an honor to be here again with you all. And so, so I'm going to talk about, money mindset and money beliefs and stories. And the thing is, as entrepreneurs, especially when you're trying to make that transition, if you caught our first talk, it's this thing like, hey, I've never been in this territory before. And so we have to realize the way that we look at money is so critically important, because as an entrepreneur, your main goal is, yes, you have passions and dreams, but let's be real, you want to make profit. And so we have to take a look at what are some of the things that are blocking that profit from coming in, abundance from coming in. And it's all in how we are looking at money and our relationship with money. And I love what we're going to be talking about, because this is actually something very simple. A lot of times we get focused on like, okay, I need to, set aside money for taxes, and I need to create these spreadsheets and these budgets. I need to know my margins. And yes, you do. However, before you get there, it's so important to understand how our relationship with money is and what are the foundational and simple things that we can do. It's kind of like, when you get a facial and then they tell you that your skin's going to start breaking out because you're sloughing the surface, right? You got to clear all that. And so I'm going to talk about 4 things that we can all simply do in order to just kind of clear and reset. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is being aware about, first, our vibrational frequency. And so we all vibrate energetically at a particular frequency. And the lower it is, the denser your energy, and then the heavier your problems seem. And then the higher your frequency is, the lighter you feel physically, emotionally, because we're mental bodies. And so here's an example. If we're talking about high frequencies, that's enlightenment, which is the highest one. Then you got peace and joy and love. Even just when I say it, like, oh, it feels great. Then you got the lower end of that. And then that's where guilt and shame and apathy and grief, that's where and even when you say that, you can feel it's low. And so it's important to pay attention to that, because how we look at our money is going to show up in the way that we feel and the things that we say, and all of that affects stuff. And so when you're trying to think of the things that happened in the past and you keep on hanging onto those low frequencies, I mean, you have to wonder, like, why am I still not making money? Why am this not working? You have to pay attention to, what are you saying? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? So let's start clearing this out. The first thing I want to share is declutter everything. It's as simple as that. Declutter everything. And so when it comes to manifesting money or anything in your life, really, you need to make room for it. I like to call this creating space. And so you need to do this physically and mentally. And so, for example, like even in my own personal life, I finally got rid of this long-term 9-year relationship that I should have gotten rid of, like, month 3. And I hung on to it. And finally I got to a point like, this is just going nowhere. And I knew it wasn't serving me. And as soon as I finally let that go, and I started clearing up my space, you look at your desk, or maybe you do a weekly cleanup, and maybe you need to do that big spring cleaning. But physical space is so important because it's occupying space. You look at it. I mean, how do you feel when you look at a mess? It's like, you don't want to look at it, right? And so when it even comes to mental clearing, think about, subscriptions you need to cancel, relationships that no longer serve you, people that don't need to be in your life anymore. And, Summer and I talk about this often about, making space or making sure that you're paying attention to things or people that don't serve you, don't belong in your life. All that stuff is occupying space. And it is, if you think about a cup of water, if it's full, and you're not dumping out the parts that don't need to be in there, how can more things, the things that you want to come into your life, enter? It can't. So this is why we have to declutter to make the space for the things that we do want, such as abundance, such as prosperity, such as profit, such as partnerships with companies and people or vendors or people that you want to collaborate with. In order for that to come in, we need to create that space. The second one is to let go of grudges and have forgiveness. I talk about this one often because forgiveness is so underestimated. And I think a lot of times we feel like, well, that person, they're the one that screwed me over. They need to be the one to apologize. Listen, sometimes the forgiveness could be for somebody who's not even around anymore. And so the forgiveness is for you. It's for you to stay mentally healthy, for you to clear that negative energy. Like I talked about in the beginning, like the guilt, the shame, grief, all that forgiveness is for you to move on and to move forward and to create more space so that love can come in, things that you want to feel come into your life. And so an easy way to do this is to write a huge list of every limiting money belief that you had ever since birth or however far back you can remember. It varies with different people. And then do this uninterrupted, write this list. And then when you feel you got it out, every big, small, insignificant, humiliating situation, read the list slowly to yourself and say these words: I forgive you. I love you. I'm sorry. Thank you. And actually that derives from the ancient Hawaiian teachings, Ho'oponopono prayer. And it's this big release because you're just letting go. You're just acknowledging and saying, thank you for the lesson that this taught me. I forgive you. I'm ready to move on. Thank you. I love you, and release it. And I'm telling you, these are so simple, but here's the thing. It requires you taking time. So Chiara just talked about time management. You make these a specific task with a time assigned so that you do these things. And then you stay disciplined so that they get taken care of. So the third one would be grateful. It's a very simple one, but never underestimate the tool of being thankful for everything in your life that you do currently have, and the things that you've received in the past and the things that you will receive in the future. And see, the thing too is gratitude is the highest frequency for attraction. So when you think about all this stuff, the way that you're feeling, letting go, releasing, forgiving, you literally become a magnet for the gratitude that you're in and for the things that you want to come in. And so, it's a habit. And so maybe you take some time, you carve out time, again, time management, to sit down. And even if you start with 5 minutes and then build up to it, sometimes it's just those little baby steps that you need to make in order to just start the engine going until it becomes a habit. And I think sometimes we try to do so much at once, and then we don't make any progress, and then we feel like we failed, and then you're sliding back down the vibrational frequency levels. It's like, always be aware of that. I always have this picture in my mind of this funnel where, okay, I'm slipping down. Okay, I need to come back up to love and gratitude. And that's what kind of helps me. I mean, we all have our bad days. We have tough moments, but in general, on the daily, momentum, if we can remain in a high frequency, this only just helps the way that we're interacting with ourselves, the people around us, as well as our relationship with money. And then finally, the fourth one is, I would say, is get intimate with your money, because money creates emotions. Money, we have a relationship with it. And so what you think about, you bring about, or what you focus on grows. What you focus on expands. And so instead of yourself being on autopilot, or worse, you don't make intentional decisions with your money, make it a goal that you are understanding what's happening. I mean, far too often when I work with people, initially, the first thing I'll ask, okay, do you have a budget? Have you created something? And what do you think the answer usually is? No. What most people do is they check their bank account. I was just talking about this on a live. I said, yeah, you know what most people do? They'll check their bank account like, okay, great. I have some money. It's in the positive. And then they'll go buy it. And then they get screwed later on when they realize, oh, wait, I forgot that was auto drafting. And then I don't have the money. That is not intentional living. That is just kind of hoping I had the money to buy something when you really didn't, because there's no plan or thought to it. So you remain, even just in those deliberate decisions to not be on top of it, you're already choosing to live in chaos. You're already choosing to live in uncertainty. So you have to pay attention. If this is what I'm doing, what do you think I'm asking the universe, God, your higher source of power, to bring more to you? You're choosing that, and you're choosing for more of that to stay and remain in your life. So how can you expect things to get better? So pay attention to that, what your relationship is with money. Are you observing it? And when I talk about relationship, you got to even look at it to the point where, how am I talking about my money? Oh, this sucks. I got to pay taxes and bills and blah, are we complaining? Again, where are you on that vibrational frequency chart? Like, are you like, meh? Or are you like, you know what? I'm grateful. I have bills to pay that helps me sustain this lifestyle that I enjoy and I'm comfortable. So pay attention to where your balance is. Where does the money go? How do you feel? How do you feel when you look at the income that comes in? And start a basic sheet. It could be paper. Just start something where you're starting to track, but start to become intentional with your money so that you're not worrying about expenses. And, it's so important to pay attention and just be aware of what is happening. So just doing those simple steps where this is really about understanding, am I creating the blocks that are not enabling me to move forward or to create prosperity and abundance? What are those things that you need to clear out? Who or what do you need to forgive? And sometimes it could be even yourself. And so practice gratitude, and then finally be intentional with your money. And when you start to do those things, you will start to see things shift. I promise you, I've done this myself, and it's amazing when you start to see what happens in your life.
Thank you, Jen Fontanilla, for those 4 amazing tips. I know we can take those tips and apply them. Thank you so much. I love them. All right. We are moving on. Next speaker is Neha Sampat, and she is going to be speaking on building your brand. Oh my goodness. I know I need some tips. So here we go. Building your brand is about establishing credibility in the market and knowing how to leverage social media. Let me do a brief bio of Neha. Neha is the CEO and founder of Gen Lead Belong Lab, where she focuses on building belonging and true inclusion through consulting, training, speaking, and writing. She helps organizations create peak performance, inclusive teams by addressing hidden barriers to belonging, such as internalized bias, unconscious bias, distrust in teams, and wellness challenges. She is a nationally sought after expert on inclusive leadership and disrupting imposter syndrome. And she runs the top rated, quote, owning your value programs to cultivate evidence-based confidence and nurture authenticity. You can reach out to Neha on LinkedIn and at genlead.co. Neha, take it away.
Thank you so much, Summer. I love this panel because I am learning so much, even though I've been doing this for over 6 years now. My goodness, yeah, I definitely would put a lot more missteps, a lot more in the misstep column than in the immediate success column. But the thing is, a lot of those missteps are what led to a lot of the long-term successes. So as an entrepreneur, you always have to look at it that way. But wow, if I had had this wealth of wisdom when I started, things would have been probably a little less difficult. Let me put it that way. All right, so we're going to talk about building your brand. And I think when we think of brand, at least the way I thought about it when I first started the business was like the image stuff, right? Like, ooh, the cool logo and the colors and all that kind of external facing stuff, kind of the superficial stuff. And I'm here to tell you that we're going to dig deeper than that. So I'm going to start with the deep dig, and then we'll kind of move outwards with the tips I'm going to give you. But brand is really, when done right, it's about the heart. So that's what I want to start with, is the heart of you and what your vision is, the heart of your business that you're planning to build or you are building. And that is where, when you build brand well, it's when it's heart-led. So first tip, own your expertise. Claim it and proclaim it. That's the tricky part, okay? Well, it's all tricky. The claiming it is tricky and the proclaiming it is tricky. So I remember when I started my business. Now, I have to tell you that I'm coming at this with the lens of a service provider business, not a product. So I'm super curious for Dr. Barrow's insights on this, because she comes at it from the product perspective. But so that's the lens I'm coming at it with, was the service provider perspective. And I'm a consultant, I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer. So please know that that's kind of where I'm coming from, because I think it may differ in some ways if you're actually providing products. But I remember when I started the business, I had my own imposter syndrome. You know, I'm like, wait, what? Like, I can't possibly be an entrepreneur now. Like, I had this vision in my head of what an entrepreneur looked like, talked like, was like, and I felt like that was not me. And so I kind of felt like there's this group of entrepreneurs and I'm like a wannabe, essentially. I'm a fraud, right? Like, that's what imposter syndrome is, that feeling that you're not cut out for the work you're doing or want to be doing, often in spite of evidence to the contrary, combined with a fear of being discovered as a fraud. And I think a lot of people I see starting businesses, because now I have a lot of people contacting me saying, tell me how you did it. It's a common experience to feel like, but I'm not a real entrepreneur, right? I don't really own a business. And if you are going to come at it that way, you are basically turning people off right out the door. So you have to think about, what's your niche? What's your area of expertise? And you have to first figure out, how do you define expertise? Because unfortunately, many of us, and it's probably even more women than men, because of how we're socialized as women, to really wait until we have things perfect, until we get out there and go public. And that's because often we are expected to be perfect before we go out there. But what I'm going to tell you is, you will be waiting forever if you try to get things perfect, and you will never, ever launch your business. So the launch usually has to happen before you're comfortable with it happening. You have to say it. So I remember when I started my business, people would be like, oh, what are you doing now, Neha? And I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, so my name is Neha Sampat. I am founder of Gen Lead, right? Like, there was this uncertainty. There was this doubt in it. There was a question mark after founder. I couldn't even use the title CEO, which is what I use now. Now I'm like, I'm Neha Sampat. I'm CEO of Gen Lead Belong Lab. It's different. And I feel like that fear, that kind of comparing myself to people who were 10 years into their business and saying, I'm not them, so I can't possibly claim that I'm an expert. I can't possibly claim that title of CEO, held me back. So I want you to define expertise reasonably, going back to the reasonableness that I think Chiara was alluding to and talking about earlier when it came to time management and goal setting. be reasonable about and how you define expertise. Expertise doesn't mean you have to know everything about everything. Expertise doesn't mean that you have already have to have a 10-year-old company. I was an expert in building belonging before I started the business. Am I more of an expert now? Yes, I would hope so. But it doesn't mean I wasn't an expert then. So it's really important that you own your expertise, you claim it, and you proclaim it with confidence. 2, figure out your company's values and purpose. Also, kind of going back to what Chiara was saying about what's your why. This is really important in building your brand. This is the heart of what you do. Everything you do externally brand-wise has to grow from what your values and purpose are and what your company's values and purpose is, or are. And so I think define it broadly. Like what are you trying to do? What impact are you trying to have? So for me, my company's purpose is we help organizations create cultures of belonging into which each person can bring more of their true and best self. That is broad. There's a lot of flexibility in there for me to pivot and do different sorts of programs, but that's what I believe in. When I say that, I feel it, I feel it. I feel excited. I love what I do. So think about that, and everything that comes building brand-wise has to grow from that passionate exclamation of what your values and your why are. Now I'm going to kind of move more towards the superficial. Have a polished looking website, even if it's bare bones. Do it quick. Do it before you start talking everywhere about what you do, because that's a credibility issue. That is like, people aren't usually necessarily reading the fine print on the website, but they want to know you're legit. And a website says you're legit. So you can go on Wix or any of those other like website building things, build something simple, but just have something there. It's really important to have something there. Next tip, strengthen your credibility as an expert with your target clients. You want to be able to say to people, we know what we're talking about. We know what we're selling. So this is where social media can really be a friend to you. So share tidbits of your expertise. Constantly be providing value. And this is a way to kind of stay front of mind with prospective clients too. This was something I had to have a social media expert, shout out to Nicole Abood, who helped me understand that I need to be posting a lot more than I was originally on social media. And it actually pans out, because I've had prospective clients who have been like nurturing for years contact me, because in the moment they thought, oh, we want to have a program for our companies for March, for Women's History Month. And right when they're thinking about it, they see my post on LinkedIn talking about confidence and owning your value. And they're like, oh yeah, of course. I forgot Neha does this. Let me give her a call. So you want to stay front of mind, share some value via social media. If you like to write, that's part of your brand. Build your brand by putting some tidbits of content out there. Not everything that's behind your paywall, but tidbits of content to have people understand that you are an expert in this space. Comment on other people's posts. Have an opinion, have a perspective. We're so scared to turn off parts of the market by saying something and standing strong and saying, this is my perspective. But the thing is, when you actually dig in and say, this is how we see things uniquely in this world, this is what we uniquely provide. Yeah, you may lose a segment of the market, but you're going to fire up another segment of the market. And that's the segment of the market that is great for you. So don't be scared to take a stand. Get your first customers, next tip, and get them to write testimonials for your brand. Get them to post about your products and services on social media. It's actually worth charging less upfront when you're building out your business, but think about creative ways to maintain a fair exchange, as one of my mentors put it to me. It was great advice. You can discount the price right when you're starting out, but say, hey, how do we maintain a fair exchange here? Would you be willing to write a testimonial for our work or our product? If you're satisfied with it, which I know you will be, at the end, in exchange for me kind of discounting what we provide to you. So when you're starting out, you can provide those discounts, but make sure you get something else of value. The testimonials are of tremendous value these days. And finally, let's get to what we're really think about when we think about brand is the external, the visual elements of it. This is just a tip that you might know of, but Canva can be your best friend as you start to think about, I want to put out some of those cool Instagram images. I want to create the color, figure out what my brand colors are. Get on Canva. You can tinker around for free and make a lot of cool stuff that you can use. So that's the kind of packaging part of our brand, but all of that needs to be heart-led with the who you are, why you're doing what you want to do.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Neha. Woo! So many great tips. I just have to throw this out there. In 2004, I had gotten my doctorate, and my husband called me Dr. Summer Watson for the first time, and it felt weird. I was like, why? Don't call me that right now, right? And I thought, I have been working in the field for so long already. I already had an expertise. So when you talked about that expertise and that imposter syndrome, I think we've all been there. So thank you for bringing that up, talking about that, and really sharing those steps, because I think a lot of us need to hear that. So thank you. Such great information on this panel. It is so awesome. Jen?
Yes. So I have the pleasure of introducing our host and also our last speaker for this panel. And so the one, the only Dr. Summer Watson. She is a success coach, a doctor of psychology, podcaster, author, international lifestyle writer, seminar host, producer, and owner of Core Women. And she's also the executive producer and co-host of the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. You can find her at Core Women and at the Life, Love, and Money Show on Instagram, or you can DM her on LinkedIn. And so Dr. Summer's topic for today is succeeding with value, understanding your core values, the impact of conditioning, and how understanding your own system of beliefs guides your professional success. Without further ado, take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for joining me in this opportunity to share with everybody. Gosh, so many good tips. Jen, you might want to time me. No, I won't be 10 minutes. So I'm going to start back in 1977, and I was in the second grade. I went to school in a small beach town in Northern California. I always liked my school, and it was a place where I found a lot of comfort. But what made it so fulfilling was my teacher, Ms. Bryant. She was funny, she was smart, kind, patient, thoughtful, and allowed for creativity. She reminded me of that girl. Now, I don't know if I probably just dated myself by that comment, but I'm sure some of you know that girl. It was Marlo Thomas, by the way. So, well, being in her class, I thought I wanted to be like her. Why? Not because of the way she looked, but because of what she valued, what she modeled for her students, and what she modeled for me. I learned to value kindness, creativity, laughter, knowledge. And as I went forward on into junior high and high school, having gone to both a Catholic school from 5th to 8th grade, a public school, and then on to UC Berkeley, which is one of those schools most widely known for rallying around causes. I learned about what people valued in regards to faith, love, leadership, determination, status, fairness, equity, community service, and so much more. I was learning about others' values as well as my own through my experiences. I also learned about conditioning and what was expected of me and what I was told to value by my parents, other family members, educators, and clergy. Now, this wasn't all bad, but what I realized during my journey was that if I want to live authentically, that I would need to better understand my own beliefs and what I stood for and how I walked in my journey. I had to stop living in accordance to what others expected of me and also look at the operant conditioning that I experienced based on the rewards and punishments of my behavior based on the values of others. It was so important for me to determine what core values made up my foundation and how I was living based on the beliefs that I actually lived in alignment with. What my core foundation looked like was something for me to figure out. And I will tell you that I had to look back on my history and take a deep dive. Many people say, don't look back because you'll miss what's in front of you, or you'll miss an opportunity. I say, take a glance back, because you want to look back on the important moments in your life to understand, as Chiara said, as Neha said, the why. They were important. You want to see the value gained from those experiences. And many times you can figure out what values you picked up over years because of moments or experiences, good and challenging, and by the choices that you made. One of the key exercises that I like to do with people that help them identify their values and beliefs is to ask them to write down their own glance back story. It's in my book, by the way. This helps people recognize the life experiences and modeling that they were exposed to over the course of their life that had an impact on them, such as Ms. Bryant had with me in the 2nd grade. So, when you go for a job interview, we usually do a bunch of research to prepare for that interview. And we look at the company, their guiding principles, their mission statement, pillars for conducting their business, and strategy, and on and on and on. But have you ever done your own personal core values plan? If not, start with your glance back story. Okay? Identify the key moments and experiences that impacted you. Understand why these experiences had such an impact, and pull out from those experiences the value gained, such as achievement, friendship, strategy, stability, love, compassion, challenge, honesty, contribution. It could be even fame, status, knowledge, optimism. These are all values. Take those experiences, take a look at them, take a deep dive. What value did you gain by those experiences? And write those core values down. Make a list of up to the top 10 core values. Ask yourself, are these the values that you live by and those that help you guide you when you make decisions about your life? If so, those are your core values. Keep that glance back story and your core value sheet around. Don't misplace it. Keep it around, because those are your core values. Keep those around, because when you start veering away from the values that are meaningful, it's time to get back to those that are meaningful to you. Get back on track, which will be a lot easier when you go to make decisions. That core value sheet and understanding your why. These core values are so meaningful to you, and how they've helped guide your life in a positive and meaningful direction is so important to understand and know. These values are your launching point. They will guide you both personally and professionally. They will help you evaluate who you match with in your personal life, help you make decisions about jobs, whether or not that company that you really want for aligns with your core value system. Do you know that when you look at a job or how you conduct your business, by aligning with your value system, this will support the longevity of how long you stay with that job, and also how you grow your company, as Neha had mentioned. It's so important. It can be difficult and confusing to understand what your value is when you're being told what to believe. So take the time to do your glance back story. Write out your core values worksheet. Walk in alignment with your values. And when you begin to stray, go back to that glance back story and that value sheet and check in with yourself. Sometimes we must be our own positive disruptors, which means that you can reflect on what values you hold dear. This may change the way your journey looks, how you run your business, and the goals you still want to achieve. This might feel very uncomfortable at first, but walking in alignment with your values will support you in the most meaningful of ways. It's worth it to do this exercise because it provides clarity unlike any strategic plan you can do. As Roy Disney said, when your values are clear to you, making decisions becomes so much easier. Knowing your values will not only be your foundation from which you launch, but they also act as your very own personal and professional docent. And in relation to staying true to yourself, Michelle Obama said, "I have learned that as long as I hold fast to my beliefs and values and follow my own moral compass, then the only expectations I need to live up to are my own." Thanks. Thank you. Well, that's it. This is a wrap. But before we wrap, I'm going to give the speakers 5 minutes to ask each other any questions that you might have. We've had some remarks on here about great points. People are happy to be here. Do you want to ask each other any questions that you might have? I have one. So I'm going to start off really quick because I'm going to go back to Dr. Margaret Barrow. So when you started out, and because you're the one person on this panel that had to do a package-based product, right? So, and use potentially somebody else's kitchen. Did you start out by using somebody else's kitchen, your own kitchen? Did you use a test kitchen? Because I do see a lot of these different test kitchens popping up. Mm-hmm. And I think, as you mentioned, it's a great way to create networks. It's a great way to learn from other chefs, cooks, people in the business. So did you start off using one of those test kitchens, and how did you go about, what was your process? I know that you said, I gave a couple of tips about looking at cleanliness and, if you wanted to be at that kitchen. So how did you start off? Like, where did you start off? Because I also know other people who've tried test kitchens and those relationships didn't turn out great, or as you said, they were kind of dirty, or yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about, where you started and what, if it was a test kitchen, if it was just a commercial kitchen, what was it?
We started out at Hannah's Kitchen in Industry City. And the reason why we actually started there was I actually pursued them for quite a long time. So getting hold of the manager was really difficult. And so I realized something. I'm a very persistent person. You can't get rid of me if I want something. So I think that all entrepreneurs are like that. Like if you want something, you go after it, right? So what I did was I just showed up. I was like, you know what? Forget it. She doesn't respond to emails. She doesn't respond to phone calls. I've left too many. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to show up. So I just kind of went there, and I had never been to a commercial kitchen before. So it was my first time. And I was that person, was very romantic, walking through and seeing myself. I could already see myself there without really thinking about, the cleanliness of the place. So, but we started out there, and I have this thing where I really believe that if you learn something in your field, especially with good manufacturing practices, I truly believe that it's important that we make sure that every single person who eats our food is safe, as safe as we can make them. And so I am that kind of person, I am that kind of person to say, we're not actually going to be here today because you haven't cleaned up. I've learned to be that person. At first I was like, okay, we'll clean it, we'll do it. But then I realized that it was eating into our time being in that space. So for 15, 20 minutes, I'm cleaning up somebody else's crud that they left behind, it was just, and I just said, but what it did was it actually helped the organization, because they also started paying attention to that. And they would say, okay, every person who comes in here, the person who was working in the area, they had to come in and they would do this inspection. So then it became like, everyone started to feel really good about that. It's like everyone is responsible for being in that kitchen. It's a shared space. And so you have to have shared values to live in a shared space. And that, I think what it does is it teaches others who maybe come into that space without those shared values, how important they are for us to exist in that space.
Oh my goodness.
That's how we started. That's how we started. And I made some really good friends there and ate some really good food.
Oh my gosh, I bet you did. And the efficiency, the boundaries, modeling behavior, shared space. In just that soundbite right there, you've mentioned so many things. And it also speaks to what Chiara said earlier about efficiency. So you came in and you helped support that efficiency of that kitchen, which is fantastic, right, Chiara?
Yes, indeed. And it's interesting, right? Because you had so much the why, right? You were that persistent person because your why was so clear. You know, when you have it clear, then your persistence, then your productivity, then your time counts, and your time values is all coming together. I think it's so, so beautiful.
Right. And I learned that, you know, I learned that being there, because at first, like I said, I was the kind of person who's like, okay, I'll just do it. And then I realized that, you know what, this is not my core values. I'm allowing someone else to determine what my core values are. So I was like, no, that's not something I can live with. You know, I'm not going to be, I think when you make food should be made with love. And it's hard to make food with love if you're having all these problems around you, you know?
And
so,
I love that.
You know, that, I mean, it just, yeah. It changes. I think that all of us have the power to impact on other people in positive ways. And we can do that with kindness. And I think that, you know, I always try to come from a place of kindness and to treat every human being with decency and respect.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you ended on that, because that's something also Jen talked about, is that forgiveness and leading with love, and really, you know, that'll really help change that mindset and reframe, you know, certain things. And so any questions that anybody else might have? Neha.
I have a question for Neha. Neha, so how long did it take you to feel like you were no longer an imposter? I mean, any one of us, if you ever felt that, can answer that too.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. I don't think imposter syndrome ever fully goes away if we're honest with ourselves. You know, I'll have moments where I'm like, oh, I'm starting to feel imposter syndrome. I'm just so good at identifying it now really early on and just dealing with it that it doesn't hold me back at all. And I've built habits that prevent me from really having it as much as possible. But, you know, sometimes it happens. I mean, I remember I was at the last like in-person gig I did way back before the pandemic. I was speaking to this giant room full of like highly accomplished attorneys from all over the country. And I said to them, and I was talking to them about how to bust their imposter syndrome. And I got up there and I said, I am having imposter syndrome in this moment because you all are like, they got into this program by being nominated, like one person from each giant firm, like it was a big deal. These people were like overachievers, like times overachiever. So I just owned it. And then lucky for me, I'm talking about imposter syndrome. So it adds to my credibility when I can say, hey, guess what? I'm feeling like self-doubt. But, you know, when it comes to owning my value and being able to say I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a CEO, I run my own business, I just practiced saying it. It felt awkward the first few times as I started to get gigs. Then I'm like, okay, now I have the proof to back up my expertise. And it grew pretty exponentially from there. I wouldn't say that it was like a switch that all of a sudden it was like, yes, now I can say I'm CEO. It was a gradual thing. But if I hadn't first said it, no one would have hired me. If I hadn't said I'm an expert in this, no one would have ever hired me. So I had to say it in this like kind of cowering internally, but externally, you know, being like, this is what I do. It's like the Nike, talk about a great brand, right? Like Nike, just do it. I mean, that's what I had to do.
Oh, I love that. And I love your 4 steps that you mentioned. So if you're out there and you didn't hear what Dr. Margaret Barrow said, or Chiara Covone, or Neha Sampat, or Jen Fontanilla, or myself, you can check this out and the replay on YouTube, on the Core Women, that's with a K, Core Women YouTube page, or on the Life, Love, and Money YouTube page as well. All right, so I want to wrap up right now by giving you each an opportunity to leave the viewers with a minute of your words of wisdom. And let's start out with Dr. Margaret Barrow.
I leave you with this thought. Trust in yourself. Trust that you know where you're headed. And by that, I mean this, that moving forward, you will find where you need to be. You will find the place you're supposed to be in life.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here today with us, Dr. Margaret Barrow. Chiara Covone.
Yes, so the two driving forces of life are love and fear, and we spoke a lot about those two forces in our interventions. And I think fear is only coming up when it's about us. And as entrepreneurs, if we shift the focus to who we're serving, that's when fear goes away. It's always going to be there, somewhere in the back of our mind. So to your point there, we're always going to feel some imposter syndrome. But when you realize that fear only really plays a role when you are thinking about yourself, when you're in the center, and instead when you're thinking about who you're serving, then you become fierce instead of fearful. And so trust yourself and serve your customer, and then the fear will go away.
Thank you, Chiara Covone, for being here with all of us today and sharing your knowledge. Thank you. Jen Fontanilla.
Yes, my words of wisdom is to really, at the core of it, is to love yourself. When it comes to your money, you have to think about how you're treating yourself, the words you use, and how much do you want things to change for you? How much do you want to see your situation change? I know that there are many of us out there who are sick and tired of being sick and tired in the current situation that you're in. So all these little things that you've heard everybody talk about, are you going to find a way to do it? Or are you going to come back a year from now and go, my gosh, I'm still in the same spot? And so a quote that I love is, it's important enough for you, you'll find a way. And if it's not, you'll find an excuse. And so I just want to leave you with that make this I look at the calendar, there's only like one more quarter left, and it's just like, what are you going to do? Then you're going to come to the next year. So make this that moment where you're going to start the changes now and not wait till January 2022.
Thank you, Jen Fontanilla, for being such an amazing partner, helping me produce this, and for your knowledge and wisdom. Thank you so much for being here with all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Neha Sampat.
Well, I think we've got a theme going here, so I'm just going to build on to that. So I would say, if you want others to believe in you and your business, you have to believe in you and your business. So take the time to really work on addressing your imposter syndrome, really figuring out what you uniquely bring so you can come to the market with that confidence. And when you feel like you're different, and maybe, you see expert as being defined this way and you're different than that, remember that different doesn't necessarily mean that you're less than. Different actually can mean that you are more than. Maybe you're exactly what's needed. And so if you can kind of go through that mindset shift, it'll really kind of add fuel to your fire and propel your business forward.
Thank you, Neha Sampat, for those words of wisdom. Fabulous. And thank you for being with us all here today. Thank you. So my words of wisdom are around value. It's going to be around value, and that's community connection. That's why we're all here today. And for me, community connection, I value that so much. And that's why I love the concept of Core Women and bringing women together. That was one of the things that I initially did. I surveyed women about how we could come together as, as a group, as people that can support one another. And here we are doing just that. Am I nervous about putting on these talks? Absolutely. Do I have imposter syndrome occasionally? Yes. Do I need to, get more organized? Sometimes. Yeah. Do I need to have a better money mindset? Sometimes. Yes. Do I need to construct things? So everything that was talked about here today, do I need to lead with love a little bit more? Sometimes. Yes. But here's the thing. I've learned all these things in a matter of more things in a matter of an hour. And that's because of something I value, community connection. So thank you all. Try it, folks. If you're nervous about reaching out to people, do it anyway. Sometimes you need to be your own personal disruptor and do things that make you uncomfortable, because those things are going to make you great as well. All right, my friends, take care. And again, thank you all of you for joining me here today on this Core Women Live. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.